Welcome. My name is Michael Mills. I'm one of the founders of Business Design Corporation and the TouchStone Business System. Our company has been a group of master certified eMyth consultants for 17 years. And I mention this because we've been delivering Michael Gerber's eMyth mastery program to many hundreds of businesses. And what we found was that while we were delivering great business theory, very few of our mastery clients were getting their procedures and their job descriptions documented, which in our minds was the very point of the program. So we went about working on a way to make eMyth theory practical, to create a simpler way of systemizing your business, a way to put eMyth theory into practice, and this is our specialty. We've helped systemize hundreds and hundreds of businesses, and to assist with this process, we've developed a web-based application, the TouchStone Business System, which really makes it easier to consistently document operating procedures and implement them in your business. So I want to begin with a question, and you'll notice that there is a poll on the screen. How many of you on the call today know you need systems? This is an important question because if you don't know that you need systems, then why would you be interested in systemizing your business? You shouldn't be thinking about systemizing your business if someone has simply told you to systemize it. By now, the idea should be so ingrained, should be so important to you that the question is no longer whether or not you need systems, but how. How do I write my procedures? How do I keep my procedures current? And how do I get my employees to follow procedures? So if you could just answer the question in the poll, yes, I know I need systems. No, I don't need systems. Great. 100% of you know you need systems. That doesn't surprise me since we're talking to an eMyth group today. The next question, and again, you'll notice a new poll is coming up. How many of you have actually systemized your business? If you could respond to the poll, yes, no, or sort of, that you've systemized your business. And by that I mean all of your procedures are documented, they're current, that you have clear and manageable job descriptions for every position on your organization chart, and for that matter, you have an organizational chart, and that is also current. Interesting. Okay, almost all of you have voted. Nobody on the call has actually completely systemized their business, but many of you are saying sort of, that you have some systems written. So that's great. A lot of times when I speak at conferences or do webinars like this, almost everybody puts their hand down when I ask them if they've systemized their business. I was at a conference for State Farm agents, insurance agents, several months ago, and there were about 300 business owners in the room. So I asked them, how many of you have read Michael Gerber's book and know about the importance of systemizing your business? And probably 75% of them put their hands up. And then I said, keep your hand up if you've systemized your business. And all but one of them put their hand down. Why is that? Why is it that almost everyone on the call today knows they need systems, but almost no one has done it? And you've known this for years. This is not a new concept. Well, we believe there are two key reasons. The first is the lack of a systems development plan, and the second is the lack of a systems development tool. And this is what we're going to focus on in today's presentation. How do you document and implement your operating procedures so that you can create consistency and reliability so you can get what we call business freedom? And that can look like three different ways. It could be calling in for the numbers from the British Virgin Islands. Nice metaphor. Could be maximizing the value of your business so you can sell it for what it's worth. And finally, it could be continuing to do what you love to do in the business without having to do all of the things that you don't enjoy doing, knowing full well that those things are all getting done well by someone else. Why do you need procedures? What's the value? There are lots of different reasons, some of which will depend on what type of business you're in. For a few of these, it's obvious you need procedures for compliance so that you can maintain an ISO accreditation or to be in compliance with your OSHA regulations. But every one of you needs systems for delegation so you can grow, for consistency so you can expect reliable results from everyone in your company, so that you can monitor and track activity so that you know how to grow. If you're doing things consistently, then you'll know whether what you're doing is working. If you're not doing things consistently, then how do you know what it is that you're doing is working? To be able to know if what it is that you're doing is working and how well, you need consistency, and you need to monitor and track the result of these consistent activities. And then and only then will you know what you need to do to grow. The number 5 is brain drain, to prevent brain drain so you don't lose your procedures, what I consider to be your intellectual property. And I'll give you an example of this. An employee working with me in one of our management meetings said to me that in a previous employer she had this really great LinkedIn system. And she started explaining it to me. And I said, okay, great. Now in a non-eMyth company, what the business owner would have done is said, go do it. And she would have done it. And leads would have started generated and sales would have started happening. And then what happens when she leaves? The process leaves with her. In a eMyth company, in a systemized company, and this is what I did with her, I said, okay, let's write it down. Let's get it written down. Explain to me how you do it. So go ahead and start doing it, but write it down for me and share it with me. People are going to work for you, and they're going to come up with some really great ways of achieving what they need to achieve. And it may be an innovation, or it might be an entirely new way of doing something in your business. You need to capture that. If you don't, the process walks out the door when the employee leaves, and they will leave. Number 6, you need procedures because documentation builds in the qualities that will allow your business to be sold for the highest price buyers are paying for businesses like yours. On the contrary, your business is mostly worthless if it depends on you. And we know this. You might get offered an earned buyout. By the way, there's a great book I'd like to recommend. It's called Built to Sell. Built to Sell. Get this book on Amazon. It's a very quick read. It's very much like the eMyth. It's all about how to create a business that you can sell. It's a fictional story about a guy who has an advertising agency, and he's completely fed up. So he goes to a consultant, and he tells the consultant he wants to sell his business. And the consultant asks him about his business, and the business pretty much entirely depends on this guy. He's got about 5 employees, 8 employees, something like that. And he tells the guy his business is worthless. And he shares him how he can turn around his business to make it saleable. And part of that is productizing his offerings, focusing on his offerings, on what he's selling and not being all over the board, and systemizing. It's a great, great book. So number 7 is you want to be able to build a business that can be sold, a company that can thrive without you. You know, a lot of times a business becomes reliant on the owner, and customers are asking to deal with the owner. The owner becomes personally involved in serving the customer, and it just constantly reinforces the customer's reliance on the business owner, and that cycle continues. For a business to be sellable, it can't depend on the owner, and by systematizing, it gives you what he calls, which I love this, it gives you what he calls an options strategy versus an exit strategy. Now, an option strategy means that you have all sorts of choices in the future. With an option strategy, you've got those 3 ideas before. You could, if a buyer comes along, you can sell it for what it's worth. Or maybe your strategy is to hire a president or a general manager and move yourself into more of a chairman's role. That's sort of the idea of calling in for the numbers. Or you can stay involved day to day and work on building an enduring company that can go on without you. And finally, point number 8, a systemized company is just more creative, it's more fulfilling, it's more fun, there's less chaos, there's less frustration. It's simply a better place to work, and you'll be able to find better employees who are more loyal and who work with more creativity and enthusiasm. But it's not just getting your systems documented, you need a way to organize them, and this is probably why we got the sort of answer. 82% of you had sort of systemized your business. You need a way to organize your procedures to be able to find them easily so that they can be implemented and innovated. You need an easy way to be able to find them so people can follow them and so that they can change when they need to be kept current and updated. Some of you may have previously seen a part of a presentation I did earlier. I just want to go through it again because it really lands the importance here. let's say you're creating a sales system and you begin to write down the detailed sequential workflow. We call this a work plan. The E-Myth, we used to call it an action plan. And you might think that's all there is, right? It's just a clearly written document outlining all of the steps to take. So you write it up in a Microsoft Word document, you save it to your network, you share it with your sales team. And when you're training them, you think, it'd be great if I had a checklist to track each step of the process so, I could see where my sales team were on each of their projects. So you create a checklist. And now your sales process has a work plan and a checklist, and you save that to your network. And then you're listening to your sales team deliver the process, and you realize that some of them are saying it really well and some of them are not saying it very well. So you think, I really need to create a script of the best things to say. And by the way, a script is not meant to be read on the phone. It's meant to be workshopped. So you write the script, you workshop it with your staff, and now everybody is performing well. But your sales process now has a work plan, a checklist, and a script, and this is often where the business owner begins to think, where am I going to store these 3 different Word documents so it's easy for my guys to find them when they need them? And usually the answer to that question is, I'll get to that later. So now you're watching your people deliver this presentation and you think, what I really need is a proposal document, some easy and consistent way for them to generate proposals. Maybe I need a PowerPoint presentation. Maybe I need a Word document for presenting the proposal. And then you think, gosh, I need a training video, and it'd be great to have an audio recording of what a great presentation sounds like. And soon your procedure, and this is what happens when you're doing processes, soon your procedure goes from just a simple work plan to a work plan, a checklist, a script, a Word document, a PowerPoint presentation, a spreadsheet, a training video, and an audio recording. So what you soon begin to understand is that a process is rarely as simple as just a clearly written document outlining the steps that need to be taken. It's just never all there is. There's always so much more. So given there's so much more, how do you organize these different elements of the same process? How does your staff find them when they need to use them? How do you find them when you need to edit them? How do you keep them current to be sure that everybody's using the most current version? And how do you ensure compliance so that you're maintaining your accreditation if you're an ISO certified company? If you don't have an easy way to access them, if you don't have an easy way to use them and keep them current, there's just not much point in even trying to document your procedures because they will go out of date. You need a tool to be sure that they're available when they need to be used or when they need to be edited. And in today's fast-paced business environment and ever-changing technology, these processes will need to be edited monthly or quarterly. It's just what happens. And then training. Studies show that when you're training someone verbally, this is how most people train, by the way, they say, just listen and watch what I do, shadow me. Studies show that they're only retaining 20% of what you tell them. They're thinking about other things. They might even be thinking about a question they want to ask, and they want to figure out, how can I ask this question intelligently? But usually they're thinking about other things. They might be thinking about the date they had the night before. But what they aren't thinking about is the intricacies of what you're telling them. And then after you've trained them, how often have you checked up on them, and they're doing whatever it was you told them to do completely differently? And you ask them, who taught you to do it that way? And their answer is, you did. The challenge is they only heard 20% and they made the rest up. So what we say is every frustration in your company is the result of the lack of a system. Either it hasn't been written or it's not being implemented. Don't blame your employee. Don't blame yourself. Blame the fact that you don't have a set of documented instructions that someone in that position could follow. They need to be able to find these instructions easily, and they need to be current. So, this idea is so well documented in Michael Gerber's book. One of the takeaways is work on your business, not in your business. But what does that mean? I often challenge people because it's such a great thing to say, but what does it really mean? It's not really natural for an entrepreneur. They feel guilty when they're working in the business, and while they don't even know what they're supposed to be doing to work on the business. It's just simply not a natural way of being for most business owners. So obviously it points to the importance of strategic planning and paying attention to what it is that you're doing with the intention of creating documented instructions so tasks can be delegated and duplicated. but I want to give you another way of thinking about this. I want to say that, and this is what we teach people, work on the business while you're working in your business. Documenting procedures is grunt work, but the thing is, you just have to do a little bit every day or every week, and that's it. I'm going to be showing you a list of the processes that I've written, and for better or for worse, it might not be such a great idea because a lot of people get completely overwhelmed when they look at what I've done. But I will tell you that when I look at what I've done, I'm amazed. I think, how did I ever do this? It's organic. It's something that simply happens. If you've got a process and you've got a tool, it simply happens. So a couple of ideas of how to get processes written. One is, if every frustration in your business is the result of the lack of a procedure, then you're going to have a frustration. Use that frustrating energy to get something started, to create a process. Simply use that frustrating energy to write the broad stroke steps and then schedule some time to fill in the details later. An example of this, we do a series of technical trainings for the users of our software. It involves creating a webinar event. It involves fairly complex automated email campaigns for registration and follow-up, creating and publishing the recordings at the end of the event and emailing out those links. We do this every 10 to 12 weeks, and then we usually set up a 3 or 4 week break. So I'm only doing it maybe 3 times a year. It's not a short enough period that I was ever able to make it a routine. So as a result, every time I did it, I was reinventing the wheel. And it was frustrating because I knew I'd recently done it, but I couldn't remember exactly how I did it. And I knew that if I just took a moment to write it down, what it was that I was doing, I'd be able to do it that much faster the next time. So I used that frustrating energy. It took me a few minutes longer as I went through the process to make notes of what I did in each step as I was creating the next webinar series. But when I was finished, I had a documented procedure. It saved me tons of time and energy once I had it documented. So if you're doing anything over and over again in a similar fashion, and it's not, if it's not nailed down as a routine, it's just one way. You want to think of it as a system and just take a little bit longer the next time you do it to document it. That's one way to get systems written. Another way of getting your processes written is during the training of a new employee. So have that new employee write down what you're telling them on a pad with a pen. Then give them some time during the day to document what they've written into, well, I'm going to say into your TouchStone account. We're going to talk about that in a minute. But even if it's just into an action plan, a Word document, give them a chance to write it down and then review and edit it with them the following day. This has basically 3 key things happen. It's sort of empowering your new employee because they're engaged in your process with you. And think of how well they'll be trained. You're telling them what to do. You can be sure that they're paying attention because they know they're responsible for documenting what they're learning. And they're writing it up. So there's this kinesthetic experience of actually writing it down. And then you're actually repeating the process 3 times, once during the training, once during the writing it up, and the 3rd time during a review. So it's a very powerful way of getting a system written. And then another way is to have the contests or workshops with your team. So we had a client, Century 21 real estate broker in California. He had 25 real estate agents in his office. The problem was 80% of his revenue was coming from 20% of the agents. It's the old 80-20 rule. It just doesn't have to be that way. So with our work, we came up with a contest. We took the top 5 producers and made them captains of 5 teams. We put the 5 greenest real estate agents on each team and then divided the rest of the agents up randomly on each team. So we ended up with 5 teams of 5. The contest was to deliver the best listing presentation, and it was judged by 3 judges. One was the owner, second was the owner's father, who had used to own the firm, and the third was the owner of the title company that they used most frequently. They were given 3 weeks to come up with their presentation, and there were only 2 rules. The presentation had to be less than 3 minutes long, and the presentation had to be delivered by the rookie, the greenest member of the team. Carl, the owner of the firm, he had a very valuable gift that he offered the winning team. So people were engaged. They loved this. There was a lot of camaraderie and competition amongst the teams. Each team really wanted to win. On the day of the presentations, there was a lot of creativity. The people were saying, wow, it was just really interesting to watch it. The presentations were done really well, and Carl recorded them all. Remember, there were 5 3-minute presentations. He took the recordings home over the weekend, and he compiled all the best points, all the key nuggets, and he brought them back. And over the following 2 weeks, he workshopped his team of agents on a script for a listing presentation until every single one of them could do a really fabulous listing presentation. And the result? His sales jumped exponentially. No longer was it the 80-20 rule. And more important, lots of work started happening. Every agent was engaged. They knew how to do what they needed to do better, and they were making more money. They were just having a lot more fun. So let's get into it now. I talk about a plan and a tool. So I'm going to give you a 5-step systems development plan. It's very simple. The first step, step number 1, is simply to identify all of the tasks in your business. Don't worry about documenting them all. At this point, it's just about the what, not the how. If you hear yourself describing how you're doing it, you're going too deep in this first step. The first step is simply to understand the scope of the project ahead of you. What are all of the systems that need to be built? All of the sales processes, all of the financial and administrative systems, the leadership and management procedures. This first step is simply to create this, what we call the systemic infrastructure of your business. Second step is to prioritize this list. If you've got 200, 300, 500 systems, probably you'll have somewhere between 20 and 30 that are really important. So step 2 is really just understanding how many really need to get written right now. If you focus on the 500, it's going to be completely overwhelming, and people give up. They think, oh, I just don't have time to do this. One of the things I'm going to say over and over today is that systemizing your business is a way of being. It's an organic way of being. It's not a project. It's a process. So step number 2 is prioritize the systems list. Now, this is always interesting because you might think that the most important procedures are the ones that you do as the business owner. But while those are most likely the most important systems, they're not necessarily the most important systems that need to be written. You might have a sales manager who's about to leave, and you just have no idea how they do things. That would be a good idea to focus on their positions. So step number 2, prioritize the systems list. Step number 3 is all about managing getting these systems written. First of all, you cannot do this by yourself. You must enroll your employees and your managers to help you in this effort wherever possible. And you also need to be realistic, because it's quite likely that you and your employees are already working 40 or more hours a week. But everybody has at least an hour a week, or even 2 hours a month, to focus on getting a system written. And that means if you and 1 or 2 other employees are writing processes, you should be able to get 3 or 4 processes written every week, 10 to 12 a month. And it's been my experience that the highest priority systems, those identified in step 2, are generally all written within a couple of months. It can have a dramatic impact on your business. Step 4, it's all about implementation. And you'll notice I use the word implementation and training. These 2 words are really important, because you cannot expect that someone just is going to take this work plan that you've documented and read it and do what you want them to do. You must train them in the work plan. And what you will find in the training of the work plan is that you'll see where details, steps have not been fully described or well described. You'll see where steps have been out of sequence or missed steps. So it's a great opportunity to tidy the process up, to put more detail in it. But don't wait until you've got all of your procedures written. The very moment you get a process written, implement it, train it, get started on it, because you will start fanning the flames of systemizing your company. People, it's so natural for us to want to follow routines, to be efficient, and not to constantly reinvent the wheel. And if you actually start creating documents for your team to follow, they will start embracing this idea, and you will enroll them more and more in the business systemization process. And finally, step number 5, monitor and report on the use of processes. This is so important. If you're not tracking the fact, whenever you have an action plan or a work plan, at the bottom you're going to have some key indicators or some standards or some expectations. You want to be tracking to make sure that those expectations are being met, and if they're not, you want to find out why. It's either because they're not following the system, or the system just isn't. They don't know how to do it, and they need more training. So you want to monitor and report on the use of the systems. So there's more information on this in the Business Systemization Kit, the ebook I sent to you earlier. There's a link to an audio and a video that goes into this 5-step plan in more detail, but I just wanted to touch on it today. So the first step then is to identify all of the tasks in the business. So this is where I want to get you guys to help me out here. We're actually going to go into this process of identifying all the tasks in the business. So to do this, I want you to start thinking of your business as having 4 key functions. Your business, my business, everyone on the call, every one of your business has 4 quadrants or 4 key functions where you can organize your procedures. The first, getting the business. These are all of your sales and marketing procedures. Doing the business. These are all of the procedures for delivering on the promise you made during the sales process. Systems for client fulfillment, production, customer service, all of the procedures that directly relate to what you do for your clients. Running the business, these are all the systems that go on behind the scenes, such as invoicing, paying your bills, collections, hiring and firing, preparing financial statements, budgeting, essentially all the financial, administrative, human resources, and IT type systems. And then finally, guiding the business. These are the strategic procedures for leading, managing, and guiding the business from where you are today to where you want to get to. So in the simplest of terms, there are really only 4 core activities that can happen in a business. We've got getting the business, you got to get the sales, you got to deliver on the promise, you've got to collect and pay for the goods and services performed, and you've got to guide and manage things. So this is your systems database. This is where you're going to organize and store all of your procedures. I'm going to toggle over to a TouchStone account. So one of the things that I can say is that everything I'm about to show you right now, it could be done in Word documents. I think I've got a little slide on this. It could be done in Word documents. It could be done in Excel. It could be done in Google Docs or Dropbox. But I'm going to use TouchStone because we've been doing this for 17 years. 3-ring binders, document sharing applications like Dropbox, Google Docs, they don't work. Why? Because with any project, if you don't have a tool for organizing these implementations, it's just really, really difficult. So I'm going to be toggling over to TouchStone and demonstrating this. These are the 4 key functions: getting the business, doing the business, running the business, and I'm going to be asking you in a minute to start giving me process names, sample names, as if I'm your consultant and I'm helping you identify this first step in the 5-step plan, helping you identify your work activities. First of all, in your 4 key functions, if you don't like these processes, then rename them. You can come in here and you can edit your function title. You could call this sales and marketing, for example. if you're a chiropractor, you might get getting new patients, patient fulfillment or something like that. But you can rename these different procedures as you will, and that's what you want to do as the first exercise in systemizing your business, is look at your own business and say, okay, these are my 4 core functions. Now, within each of these core functions, you're going to have subcategories. And you're going to see some of my e-myth background coming out here, because we take your business and your sales processes and we divide them up into 3 quantifiable activities: your lead generation or your advertising, your lead conversion, which is taking qualified leads, or actually probably taking any leads and qualifying them and then converting them into long-term loyal customers, and then what we call client reconversion or retention, client loyalty. So what I want you to first think about is, what is it that happens in your business? And I want you to write this down in the chat box or the question box. What is it that happens in your business that tells you that a prospect has become a client? What is that step for you? So go ahead and type that in the GoToMeeting chat box for me if you could. So, it might be a purchase order. It might be a handshake. What is it for you? So go ahead and let me know. Someone's just writing, a sales order is processed. Great. Signed contract. Great. Handshake. Yep, that happens. So what you're going to do is you're going to come up here and you're going to start identifying these processes. We're doing it right now. So we have a signed contract, and I'm going to put that under lead generation. You could put handshake, but I'm probably going to say, let's call, we might call that, let's call that a client intake system, because it's really not a process, but the process of taking that in would be a client intake process. So I'm going to put that over on the right side under lead conversion. What else did I get here? Send me, I'm not sure what you're saying. A PO. Okay, right, a purchase order. Okay, so that's actually a contract. That would probably be the first step in here. A PO. Good. What else? Sign a business agreement, handshake, sign contract, sales order processed. Okay, great. So we could let's put that in here. Purchase order. That to me is a little bit, but we could put that in here. Okay, great. So you all, let's talk about how you generate leads. Then how do you generate leads? Think about what happens in your business. So basically, it's important to think of these signed contracts, this client intake process, as the place where lead generation, getting the business, your sales and marketing activities end, and client fulfillment start. So I want to know now, what are some examples of lead generating activities? How do you generate leads? Referral, great. So let's add that one in. Referral, and that's going to be part of that. Networking through contact lists. So let's see, who said that? Networking through contact list. Larry, when you say contact list, are you networking with email blasts, something like that? Because there might be networking. You might have networking through BNI groups, for example. Someone said LinkedIn. So you actually might create a sub-function here called social networking. If a lot of you are using social networking, you might want to create a sub-function here. You might have a LinkedIn process. You might have a Facebook process. So we'll put that under social networking. You might have a Facebook. Does anybody do Facebook? On Twitter, maybe? The other thing that can happen, everything in your TouchStone account is drag and drop. So if I blow it and I put it in the wrong spot, I can just bring it over here. Networking through contact list, referral, LinkedIn, marketing or advertising. Stephen, what sort of marketing or advertising? Do you advertise in the yellow pages, in the newspaper? Free seminar, great. Let's do free seminar. Great. Outreach email to former clients. Okay, so we'll have email blasts. So, and by the way, I'm going to take this process and I'm going to stick this under running the business because it really belongs there. And we'll put it under finance. And I'm going to take this signed contract and I'm going to stick it over here because I think it probably belongs there. Let me just see, do I have a TV interview? Great one. These are great. You guys are great. TV interview. Okay. So now you can see what we're starting to do here is we're starting to say, okay, these are how we generate leads. Lead conversion. Talk to me about your lead conversion processes. How do you, after you generate your lead, how do you convert these leads into sales? What do you do to nurture these leads to convert them into sales? Oh, great YouTube video. That's another good lead generation process. Follow-up, great. Yep, absolutely. Is that email follow-up or, in fact, you might have two. You might have a bunch of follow-up processes. So you're going to see that I'm going to put this actually in lead conversion. Assessments. So Rich, assessments is that like a consultation, a free consultation? Let me add that one because someone else just said that. Free consultation. Yep, great. Someone said, yeah, this is duh. Like, why don't we do a qualification a process? That would probably be the first thing you want to do, right? Let's qualify. Let's qualify this lead before we start spending much time on it. So I'm going to take that lead qualification process and stick it right up at the top here. Okay, great. Yeah, free consultation. Samples, great. Free samples. Anything else? Lead conversion. What about quotes, proposals, estimates? Do any of you do quotes or estimates? I'll put that in, quotes, estimates. That would be considered a sales process. Oops. Okay. Ask for the business. Ask for the business. I guess it's Joseph said ask for the business. This is true, Joseph, but what this is this is a step in a process. This would be a step in probably the follow-up process. And you might even want to write a script for this. So, for example, you might have this follow-up process right now, and you might have a follow-up call process where you're following up a lead, and there might be this step, this step, this step, and the last task of the process. So it might be do this, then do this, then do this, etc. Step by step, you're going through and doing this, and then the last step of the process is ask for the sale. So, and you might even have a script here called ask for the sale, how you would do this. Ask for the sale, and you would create this script with words and then workshop it. And again, the thing that makes it so easy for TouchStone is that you could actually highlight this and hyperlink it to that script so that when someone is going through your process, they can actually follow and jump right over to it. So as they're following down through the work plan, they can go bingo and go right to the script that you've written. Let me just see, is there anything else? Ask for the sale. Okay, let me go back to the 4 key functions. Okay, so this is great. One last area, client reconversion. So one of the things that you should know is that your client list, and you guys probably know this, your client list is the most profitable list you have. Studies show that the cost to generate a new lead is probably 5 to 12 times the cost of retaining an existing client. And the return on investment to retain clients and market to your existing list is typically 10 times higher than for new client marketing. So what do you guys do to retain your clients or cross-sell your clients, or what are some examples for that? Client satisfaction survey, great suggestion. Client satisfaction survey. Client reconversion. Quarterly client review meetings, great process. Quarterly client reviews, great. Newsletter, good one, great. Newsletter. Someone says talk to clients. What would you be talking to them about? What would we call that process? Let's give it a name. Newsletter. Reorder reminders, that's a good one too. Reorder reminders. Client reconversion, retention. What about client specials? Does anybody do client specials? Anybody do client specials? Drip marketing. I would put drip marketing under, I'd actually put drip marketing under lead generation. Now, that's what I say, but the beauty of this process is that you're logically thinking about these things. It doesn't matter where you put it, as long as you're organizing it. So what we've done here, let's see, there's another one. Talk in person, ongoing personal relationships. Yes, Roy, I'll give you that one. However, I will tell you, remember that point I was making earlier about, well, what we'd want to do with that ongoing personal relationships and talking to people is we want to make sure that the client is becoming reliant on you. I'll give you an example of this. I had a client who was in Texas, so Roy's in Texas. I had a client who was in Texas. They sold assets for oil companies. So they would sell huge swaths of land, or they would sell oil platforms, things like that. It was a pretty big company. And they didn't actually do a lot of projects every year. They'd only probably do about 5 or 6 projects, maybe 10 projects a year. But every time they did a project, the owner of the company decided to send a personalized thank you note to when they got the project. So we created a simple little process. We called it the thank you letter. And the thank you letter was really, it was part of lead conversion. And what he would do is we wrote a little handwritten, a little script that he pulled out an envelope and pulled out a card, and each time he hand wrote these letters. And I've actually seen, for people who have a lot of client transactions, they actually go out to Craigslist and they get people who write thank you letters for them, who hand write thank you letters for them, and they pay them $1 a thank you letter. And this thank you letter is just, it's 4 sentences that says, hey, Roy, I really appreciate you hiring us for this project. We will do the best we can, and we're always so grateful when we're able to work with such a great client, or, whatever it is. And the other thing they did, for client reconversion is they gave trophies. This was the same company, this oil company, I can't remember what they called it, but there was a process where they actually gave this beautiful trophy when the project actually completed and the client had bought this new property. They had a big celebration and brought everybody together, and they did this wonderful celebration. Okay, so look at what we've done right now. We've organized pretty much a whole quadrant of someone's business. This could very well be one of your businesses right now, where you've identified all of your processes. Essentially, these are your 4 key functions. We just did this. We did it in about 15 minutes. Now, we have a lot of contribution, but what I'm saying is that once you do this, you go through each step of your 4 key functions. You focus on your sales and marketing procedures. Then you go to strategy and management. Then you go to admin and finance. And then you go to client fulfillment. And you begin to go through this. This process takes about maybe 2 hours, maybe 4 hours. And one of the things that I recommend that you do, I do recommend that you go through the process thinking on your own. But in the Business Systemization Kit, there are links to sample email templates or sample process templates for each of these key functions. And if you get the TouchStone account, there are actually, if you go into any one of our key functions, there are sample process names up here. And by the way, I would absolutely recommend that you download these 3 processes if you do. These 3 processes are fantastic strategic consultative processes. These are actual processes that we've done with our clients. I actually like to reorganize this a little bit. Create a strategic plan. This is a sample of a procedure, by the way. And remember earlier I was saying how many processes are more than just one work plan? This is a process, this one process in name only. And you'll notice that in the TouchStone account, we actually have your whole org chart. We're going to take this one process and we're going to link it to the president. And in fact, each of the managers, we're going to put it on each of the managers' job descriptions. The beauty of this process is that you can now start downloading procedures, and some of these we've actually written. So this is a great tool that you'll want to download. It really tells you how to define a vision, how to create a strategic plan so that you can stay on course towards achieving your vision, how to create a meeting rhythm. So for example, how often should you meet? We've got recommendations here. You want to have an annual meeting for a couple of days to focus on what are you going to achieve this year. You want to have quarterly planning meetings that are about a full day. You want to have monthly planning meetings. You might have weekly planning meetings and daily huddles of 10 or 15 minutes. We even have sample agendas for what you want on your agenda for your annual and quarterly meetings, what you might have on your agenda for monthly and weekly meetings. We even have ways of tracking and adjusting your key indicators that you're reporting on. And you can actually fill these forms in right in on the screen. So again, one of the advantages of having a really good tool for your process implementation and documentation is that it gives you a place to organize all of these things. But as I said, in the actual ebook that I sent to you, there are links to process lists that you can use to flush out this first step of your 5-step plan. So step number 1 then is to just get all of your processes written, but then you've got to write a process. So how do you write a business process? So if you have a frustration in your business, the very first thing you want to ask is, do I have a system for this? If you don't have a system for it, then you really can't fault yourself or anyone else in your business for not handling it the way you want it handled. If the answer to the question is, do I have a written procedure for this? If the answer is no, then you need to write one. And you start by giving it a system name. don't just give it a name. Don't stress over this. You can always edit the name later. Just give it a name. And then in a sentence or two, define the exact result that you want this system to accomplish. So let's say, for example, that you watch one of your employees mishandle an opportunity to address well a customer complaint. One of the things that we say in business is that every complaint is an opportunity. Every problem is an opportunity. So you watch one of your employees mishandle a customer complaint, or maybe you're currently doing all of the customer service issues and you want to delegate this to a new employee. If you don't have a customer complaint system, you need to write one right now. So the system name might be called the customer complaint system. And then you want to define the result that you want this system to produce. So I want to resolve and learn from each customer complaint through efficient follow-up and distribution of information. You're going to go into your TouchStone account, and you're probably going to put this under here. You're going to add a new process called customer complaints. So when you're having this is what you want to do. This is what happens when you have a frustration. You just log into your TouchStone account. You name it if it's not there. You give it an objective. So we're just going to put in here to resolve and learn from each question. And then you're just going to quickly write a work plan for your customer complaint system. So you're just going to do the broad strokes, just step by step. You're just going to say, okay, first of all, listen to the customer. And you might just say, listen, access their order. Did they give you a purchase order? You know, where is their order, so you can find out, ask the question, is there a warranty maybe? You're just going to go through and then you might offer the solution immediately. You might escalate it to the manager. I don't know what the process is, but it's very quick to sort of jot down the key aspects of the process, and then later on you can fill in the detail, especially when you're training it. But this is such a good thing, and then you can grab this and you can go to say, okay, this is going to go on my salesperson's job description. It's going to go on my sales manager's job description. It's going to go on my customer service person's job description. So now everybody's got it. One of the things that you'll love about TouchStone is that your org chart is always current and dynamic and actually being used in your business, and the job descriptions are actually being used in the business. Writing your procedures is important, but there are really three key elements that need to be considered. Obviously, getting your procedures written, but you need to have job descriptions, and you need to have your org chart. And as I was sort of briefly showing, in TouchStone, you actually take these procedures and you link these processes to specific positions on your org chart to create job description. So each job description becomes a list of procedures that anyone who fills that position is held accountable to. What you will find is your job descriptions now become dynamic, current, and they're actually being used. When someone needs to know how to do something, they simply click on their position on the org chart and it will access their job description. They find a specific process on their job description and they click on it, and a set of instructions on how to perform that process will be displayed. So now you have complete functional accountability. You have all of your procedures organized in your process database. You have all of your positions, and you've tied all of those procedures to specific positions to create job descriptions. So I've mentioned previously that our company was a group of master eMyth consultants. We started our company to address the need of how to systemize a business. We've worked with businesses for 17 years. And when we first started delivering eMyth mastery, we found that our clients were learning all sorts of good stuff, but they complained that they just didn't have the time to get their procedures written. So we started writing their systems for them. And working with our clients, we would document all of their processes. We'd print them out. We'd create these beautiful operating manuals, and it would have a profound effect on our clients' business. We would work to fully systemize our clients' company. And we'd send our clients these amazing operating manuals, these beautiful binders filled with all of their processes, neatly organized with a DVD of all of their procedures. But then a couple of things started to happen. with all of their processes documented, they were now able to delegate tasks and activities effectively. And as the business grew, so did all of their operating procedures. And organizing and storing these operating procedures started to get problematic. One system would have a work plan, another a work plan and a flowchart, a checklist. They just couldn't find what they were looking for when they need it. And as the business grew, the complexity, the depth and breadth of the procedures grew, and these operating manuals grew to 200, 300, 500 pages, and then a step in a process would change or a new sales letter would get drafted. And the business owner would say, well, you know, it's only one step, I'll get to that later, and they never did. So the operating manuals, they got disorganized, they were misplaced, they just weren't kept current, they went out of date. It was difficult to find a process. And most of the time when they did, it wouldn't be current. And I will tell you that if a manager and an employee cannot find a process, or when they do go through the effort of finding the process, it's not current, they're going to stop using the processes. So basically, these operating manuals got tossed on the shelf. They just became a mess. And while this slide is a little dramatic, just for effect, people stopped using them, and they gradually began to lose the investment they'd made to have their processes documented, and everyone went back to winging it. And the process-dependent business gradually fell back to where they'd been, inefficient, chaotic, but they had this bittersweet taste of what it could be like. As a next step, I'd just like to suggest that you start systemizing your business, following the instructions in the ebook that I emailed to you earlier in the week. Better yet, schedule yourself for a personal demonstration of TouchStone. You're going to be receiving an email from me that you can click a link and schedule that demonstration. Why do you want to do that? Because, as I said previously, procedures are almost always more complex than you think, and you probably already know that. You're going to have work plans, checklists, scripts, uploaded files like Word documents and spreadsheets. So it's just really complex. I'm going to end with a couple of points. The value of your company is not just based on your revenues and profitability. It's also based on whether or not you can duplicate or scale your business to the next level. If your company has processes that are documented, especially in a tool like TouchStone, when you're ready to sell, you can actually show your potential buyers how you generate leads, how you convert them into sales, how you retain clients. Paul Lemberg, he's the CEO of a company called Quantum Growth Consulting. He reported that you can increase the value of your business by as much as 100% just by systemizing it. Every single procedure that you write for your business is an asset, and it has value to that business and to anyone who's interested in purchasing your business. Okay, thank you, everybody. I apologize for the timing. Let's just open this up for questions. JR, if you could unmute yourself, are there any questions that you've seen so far?
The main question I'd have is really has to do with what you said about the notebook system. I remember the book, The E-Myth, where Michael Gerber talks about the hotel proprietor, and he stayed at the hotel, and the little lights came on, and everything was just grand, and he went to him and he said, you know, how do you do this? And he pulled out the note. But yet we're looking here at an electronic system. So my question is, does some of the process, because it's not in front of someone's place and readily available in a tactile form, do they lose sight of the electronic system?
Let me just open up my TouchStone account here, and I'll address that for you. If you want it to be tactile, you simply select the specific position, and you can go up here and you can print a position-specific operating manual. You can print, if you have a process specifically, like a checklist, you can print a process-specific work tool. You can send it to a printer, you can send it to email, you can send it to Word or a PDF. Everything in TouchStone can be offloaded to your own computer and either printed directly to a printer or sent to an email. So in the instance of, you know, that hotel example, I would actually have a process. I would have a position on my org chart that would be, what did he call them, room turner downers or something like that. I would have a process, a position specifically for that, and when I wanted to actually print that operating manual for that, I would come up here and print that operating manual specifically for them. And now they've got an operating manual that probably is going to be 10 or 20 pages at most. Very simple, very specific. And if you make a change to any process, so, you know, all of a sudden we've got to come up with a new idea for turning down the beds. Leave 2 chocolates instead of 1 chocolate. When we edit that process, we will edit the process and then we will email it to each of the people that are in that position. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does.
I just want to say thank you to JR for hosting today's presentation. I really appreciate it, JR, that you were able to get me in front of the eMyth group, and so thank you very much for sponsoring this event. If anyone has questions, they can find us they can find either JR or myself. You can contact us. If you have some information that you're looking for, we have tons of free content at our website, www.businessdesigncorp.com. You can email us at sales@businessdesigncorp.com or mmills@businessdesigncorp.com, or you're welcome to call us at our toll-free number at 888-522-2325. Before I wrap it up, JR, is there anything else that you want to end with?
Well, the only thing I wanted to say was thank you to everyone, and also that we try to do something like this within our LinkedIn group on a quarterly basis. If you like what you've heard today, let me know so that we can schedule again in the future, if not this exact topic, maybe a spin-off of it. Or if you have an idea for another topic you'd like to hear about, I'd greatly appreciate that. And if you haven't connected to Michael and I directly on LinkedIn, you might consider that as an option so we can keep communication going in that way. And with that, Michael, thank you very much for your time, attention to detail, and the material you've shared with us today. We appreciate it.
Okay, everybody, I really appreciate you coming today. Thank you again, JR, and may you get the business that you deserve.